It's something I definitely would check out for player prop bets as well. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at But Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to cover is a big game in the NFC South that will absolutely decide who makes it to the NFC playoffs. This one's between the 6-9 Carolina Panthers and the 7-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and will be on Fox. Where I see it, the Bucs are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 39 points. Some gambling trends before we get takes from everyone. The Panthers are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games versus the NFC South. The Buccaneers are 1-7-1 against the spread in their last 9 home games, while the favorite is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the two teams. The under is 8-3 in the Panthers' last 11 games versus the NFC South, and the under is 4-0 in the Bucs' last 4 versus the NFC South. Adam, what are your thoughts on this matchup? A big one in the NFC South between the Panthers and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I agree. A monster game in the NFC South. And again, Tampa Bay back home just looked awful last week against Arizona. This offense is so inept. And it's just, there's a lot of dissension, I think, in the locker room. I don't think Brady and Bowles see eye to eye. Obviously a much win for both teams. Carolina had a big win against Detroit last week at home. They scored 30 points in 2 of their last 3 games, which has been pretty impressive for Carolina. The thing is, who do you believe here? It's the Brady theory. It's so hard to bet against them at home. Cincinnati was there laying points. Same thing. Like, how can Brady be catching points at home and Cincinnati covers? This is kind of one of those scenarios, I think, here, too. I think Carolina's playing better football than Tampa Bay right now. I don't believe in anything that Tampa does on both sides of the football. And with the emergence of Deontay Foreman, last week at 165 yards rushing last week, I think they can run the ball on that Buccaneers rush defense isn't all that great. So right now, I think the better football team is Carolina. So if I'm getting 3.5 in this game, I definitely would play Carolina. And because Tampa's offense has been so bad, and Carolina has scored 30 points in the last 2 games, but I think Tampa can do enough to keep them in the 17 to 20 range. So I would buy up that over-under a point or two and play to the under. But if I'm going to get points with a team right now, Carolina playing really well, and I think that locker room is a little bit more believing in the interim coach Wilkes, and I think they're pulling together more of a team, whereas I think Tampa's got more of a little disruptive locker room right now. So I would take Carolina with the points here.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's hard to believe in anything Tampa is doing, like he said. But with that being said, I just think there's too much talent with the Brady factor at home. The big game. He's been here before. There might still be some nerves and some mistakes from Carolina. I think Tom Brady will do enough. So I'll take the Buccaneers -3. And as you read off, all the trends are leaning towards the under. I think that's the play. 8 of the Bucs' last 9 games as favorites have gone under. So I'll take the Buccaneers -3 and under 39 as one of the strongest plays this week.
This is an interesting matchup for me because this is one in which, do you believe in the brand and the hype of the brand, or do you believe in the trends? I'm a big believer in the trends. I'll start with the under, just like Lope said. All of the trends suggest that the under is the better play. So I'll buy the 1.5 and I'll take the under at 40.5. Feel really good about that. That said, I'm not necessarily talking about the money line, but when it comes to the spread, I love the Carolina Panthers this week. As Adam spoke to, I don't know why the Bucs are getting this much respect and the Panthers are getting this much disrespect. Over the past month, the Panthers have looked like a really good team. The Buccaneers have looked terrible. So the only reason right now that the Bucs are favored is the Tom Brady factor and the fact that the Bucs are at home. But in reality, which team is playing better? It's the Carolina Panthers. I'll even double down on that. The Buccaneers are 0-6-1 against the spread at home this season. They have not covered the spread once at home this season. They've just had a push. So that's the best they've had all year. I think that continues. I think Carolina +4.5 is one of the better plays of the day. It isn't one of my best bets, only because, no, to Lope's point, I'm not going to make a best bet going up against Tom Brady. But in terms of confidence, it's certainly on the higher end. Carolina +4.5 after you buy the 1.5. I love that play. I am considering Tampa Bay on the money line simply because, to Lope's point, could I see Tampa Bay pulling out a last-second win like we've seen now multiple weeks over the last over the last month with Tom Brady? I could, but Carolina +4.5 and that running game, I'll believe in it. I really like that play this week. So even though it's Tom Brady, I'm going against him when it comes to the spread. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to talk about will hopefully decide, at least for Eagle fans, the number one seed in the NFC East, as well as the NFC overall, as the 6-9 New Orleans Saints play the 13-2 Philadelphia Eagles. This game is on Fox. Right now, the Eagles are a 7-point favorite, still learning whether it's going to be Jalen Hurts or Gardner Minshew. Minshew had a really good game against the Cowboys last week, but just too many mistakes to ultimately pull out a win. The over-under set in this is set at 44 points in this one. Some gambling trends for everyone. The home team is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Saints and the Eagles. The Saints are 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games following an against the spread win. The Eagles are 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 home games. The under is 4-0 in the Saints' last 4 games overall, and the over is 11-1 in the Eagles' last 12 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this one between the Saints and Eagles?
Well, I think the easy play, obviously, is Philly on the money line in this one. If you can get this thing under 7, I actually wouldn't have a problem laying the points with Philadelphia in this game. Minshew, like you mentioned, too many mistakes last week with 2 interceptions, but he did throw for 355 and 2 touchdowns. New Orleans obviously went to Cleveland and got that win. The thing I don't like here is that New Orleans is 2-5 on the road. But the one thing that really bothers me with this team is Taysom Hill's got a lot more playing time here with Dalton. I know it was a bad weather game last week in Cleveland, and it probably made more sense to have Hill in the game. But they've actually been running this Taysom Hill Dalton thing a little bit more towards the end of the season, and it's working okay. But I just don't like it. I think it doesn't provide continuity for the offense, and I think that it can be a little bit more disruptive than it can be helpful. Philadelphia, like you mentioned before, they have one more win and they secured the number 1 seed. So, like I mentioned, Philly and the money line is an easy play, and wait to see what Hurts and Minshew does. But if you can get this under 7, I wouldn't have any problem laying the points here with Philly.
Lope, are you laying the same points or going in the same direction as Adam?
I'm not as confident until we know more about the injuries and more. The more pressing one to me is the right tackle, the All-Pro Lane Johnson. He hadn't given up a sack the whole year. He's been a stud for them, and he went down, and I don't think he's going to play. So I think Philly's going to get the win. They would love to do it in front of their fans and clinch the seed and try to rest up, but I don't have. I think they'll do just enough, but I'm a little weary when it comes to laying the 7. I'll look towards the under 44 because I think their defense will stand up and hold the Saints down.
Lope, it's not just Lane Johnson who's out with an injury, and it's expected he'll be out for the remainder of at least the regular season. But Avonte Maddox, a major part of that Eagles secondary, is out, and that's expected to be a more serious injury. So the Eagles are absolutely banged up coming out of Dallas, and they're going to need this win with the Minnesota Vikings not necessarily right on their heels because the Eagles do have that tiebreaker. But if the Eagles kind of mail in these last 2 weeks, there is a chance that they could lose that number 1 seed. And given the health status of a number of their important players, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, and others, it's really important that they have that very valuable bye week. So I think this is a must win in many ways for Philadelphia. I do like Philadelphia on the money line for just that reason. I'm not crazy about this spread. I can see Adam's point why there might be reason to like the Eagles, but I'm not quite there yet for the very reasons Lope brought up, which are the injuries to the offensive line. So I'm going to wait and see where the public money pushes this one. Not crazy about the over-under either. Curious to know what weather will be. Curious to know how the injury report ultimately plays out. But I do like Philadelphia on the money line as an early week play. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and